Good morning. It's time to rise and shine with Jolene Merrick of Sunrise Productions. Grab your favorite morning beverage and listen in to Jolene's conversation at the home of youth communicators Craig and Molly Sanborn. Now, here's Jolene.
Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. Thank you so much, Craig and Molly, for being with me this morning. And it's just a beautiful day, and to sit and chat with a couple like you, I'm blessed. I'm so blessed to be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, so I heard that you have a very funny name, and as soon as my husband told me, ask her about the cheese balls. You're the cheese ball chick?
Yes, that is my alter ego.
What is that?
Okay, well, let's see. I'll do the short version, then you can ask for more details if you want.
Okay.
But, so I wear a cheese ball backpack around, fully equipped with a dispenser that is sanitary, so people don't have to worry about sticking their hand in the container and getting the germs. And I started wearing these 8 years ago. Oh my goodness, over 8 years ago. It's my 140th container. I've worn cheese balls to 33 states and 7 countries, and on our first date, and on a couple TV shows and news programs.
No wonder he fell for you.
So,
you bribed him with cheese balls. No,
the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, right? So
that's what they say.
But actually,
it doesn't really explain it.
No, okay. I guess I got to go backwards. So I was speaking at a youth event in Virginia, and I was given a container of cheese balls. So I wasn't like looking for some shtick or wanted to carry snacks in my back. I was given this huge container of cheese balls, and I had to bring them back to Minnesota, where I lived, through 3 different airports, 2 flights. And as I'm walking through the airport carrying this big container of cheese balls under my arm, I noticed quickly that everyone was staring at me, which was a little like, I was self-conscious. Is something wrong with me? Is there something in, my teeth, my hair weird? And then they were laughing at me. And then all these people started talking to me just because I had cheese balls. So they were laughing and smiling. And then I put them through the security checkpoint, and they got stopped. And 8 security guards surrounded my cheese balls, the big, huge bin. And I thought, oh no, they're not going to let me take them on the flight. But they were just laughing and smiling and wanted to know why I had this big container of cheese balls. And I didn't have a reason. I just said I was given them. I'm bringing them home. Then I get on the plane, and I'm sitting in the seat holding the container of cheese balls, minding my own business, and all of a sudden, over the intercom, the flight attendant says for the entire airplane to hear, "Ladies and gentlemen, if any of you are hungry, there's a cheese ball lady with snacks in aisle 9D. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, I've never been announced on an airplane before. He announced me 3 times throughout the flight. I'm making all these friends because I have cheese balls. So I went home and told my friends and family the story, and one of my friends who's known me forever said, you should carry cheese balls around and see how God uses it. You have joy to share, so he can use cheese balls.
He can use anything.
Exactly. 1 Corinthians 10:31, whatever you do, whether you eat or drink, do it all for the glory of God. So originally I made a duct tape backpack, but I wore it to Rosedale Mall, and I just walk around and wait for people to come talk to me. And people would approach me. I don't have to do anything, just wear cheese balls.
Right, that's enough.
Exactly. And they come and talk to me, and then I realized that no one wanted to stick their hand in the contaminated container. And so that's when I decided I needed to create a sanitary dispensing system where the lid stays sealed. And man, it took off, and I never knew there'd be a website and videos on YouTube, and the connections, like countless stories I could share about how God has used cheese balls, like seriously, for his glory. So
he can use a donkey, he can use cheese balls, he can use, I can just see it. I mean, it's perfect because it would draw the kids and all the people, puts a smile on their face, but it opens up a conversation. Next thing you know, you could be praying with somebody. And just how freely God has given us. How freely we should give. Like people aren't used to that. Just giving away things for free, you know?
Right.
Not in our culture anyway.
People have said to me, how much does it cost? Nothing. And people have tried to give me money. I say, no, I just want to be a blessing and spread joy, so.
Well, and it helped because, look, you got married out of
snatched
the deal.
my man, yes.
We may not be together had it not been for the cheese balls originally.
Hopefully you love me for more than my cheese balls.
It was just the bonus.
Yeah, exactly.
Cheese balls.
Exactly.
Right.
So I'd love to hear from your perspective, Craig, how the Lord brought you two together, and I know that you were already both speaking, right, to the youth and all of that. And then maybe hear the love story. I love the love stories.
Yeah, we both had, separate careers, and we were speaking at camps, conferences, schools, those kinds of things. Our paths had never crossed, but we had traveled in some of the same circles. So I was a youth pastor in a small town in central Minnesota, and just doing my youth pastor thing and sitting in my living room when I got a text message from a friend saying, "Hey Craig, would you ever consider dating someone 9 years younger?" So I kind of did the math in my head. I'm like, well, I could probably pull that off. And then it told me to go to Molly's website. So
we should clarify, honey, that it's not like he was 20 at the time and I was 11, because that'd be kind of
weird.
Oh yeah,
so that'd be weird.
He was 35 and I was 26.
Right.
Yes.
So I went to her website and I found out a lot about who she was as a person, some of her passions. I found out she opened a coffee shop in Minneapolis, which I thought was pretty amazing for a 26-year-old to design and develop a coffee shop. We both had passions for speaking and teenagers. And then I clicked on this one tab on her website, which said fun stuff. And it opened up dozens and dozens of videos of her just doing random, crazy, silly, goofy things. And after watching the videos, I thought, yeah, she's maybe a little too crazy for me.
Maybe a little too young. Maybe that 9 years isn't an issue.
It was a little longer than I thought it was.
Shoot.
And I decided to move on with my life, but then her name kept popping up in all these circles that I traveled in. And eventually, a friend of mine, when we were together with a bunch of youth pastors, Molly's name came up again. And my friend told me that she was going to be getting together with Molly. So I grabbed my friend, pulled her aside, I said, "Okay, I need you to go undercover for me. I keep hearing her name. I got this text message. I've been to her website. So go undercover. Tell me what kind of girl she is." And that lasted about 2 hours into their evening together. And my friend's calling me up and saying, "Craig, you have to meet Molly. You have to meet her. Do whatever it takes."
Can I add some details that I think the females would appreciate?
I think I covered everything.
Babe, you did not. You did not. He did not.
But we each have our own perspective on the story. So it's okay. Now let's hear your good details. Before
Craig went to this meeting at Bethel College to discuss this speaking, like you were trying to find a speaker for the event, he stopped somewhere in Minneapolis. He said he had put me out of his mind, but you paid a visit somewhere that afternoon.
I think I stopped at a gas station that morning.
Yeah, I think you stopped somewhere else. He stopped at a coffee shop. So Craig said he had tried to put me out of his mind, but he stopped at Overflow.
Was it called Overflow?
Overflow Espresso Cafe. And so some people call that creeping or stalking.
No, I think guys would call that research.
Yeah, research.
So Craig had popped in to try to get a glimpse of me, but I wasn't there. And then my perspective is I had been speaking in schools around the cities, and I was speaking at a high school for their health classes doing my Keep Your Pants On talk, and the teacher there knew his really good friend, and so she was the one who said, "You should get together with this woman to discuss women in ministry," and that happened to be his really good friend. And so when I went out to eat with these two women, I had no idea I was being researched as a prospective date for this guy. Yeah. And so then his name came up, and he contacted me a few weeks later, and skipping some fun details, of course, we had our first date, and I wore my cheese balls.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There it is.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
And what a great match God made. Because I love that. Keep your pants on.
Yeah.
I mean, we need a couple that would stand up and say, we're doing it God's way. And I know that was very key for you, right? Finding out about him, that he was saving himself for marriage. That was key for me, too, with my husband.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately I had come from a way different background, but I had started over, and he had been saving himself all the time.
That's awesome.
So, for me, when I heard that too, it was like, a big check on the plus side, right?
Absolutely. God had actually, I had gone through a lot of sort of praying and soul searching, obviously for my future husband, but when it came to the whole purity piece, that was such a passion of mine. I knew it had to be a passion of the man that I would marry, and yet I didn't know if maybe he'd have a backstory that God had brought him out of, just like you shared. And so I was always open and willing for God, for any kind of backstory, right? Because if he had lived a different life before he met the Lord, or even while he knew the Lord, but had come out of that, and receive forgiveness and been made new. Right. Like I was willing for that to be my story, to marry a man with a past that God has redeemed. But I always hoped and I always prayed that God would hook me up with someone that maybe had kind of been faithful the whole time. And so when I found that out about Craig, that he was in his mid-30s and had been waiting, that was incredible. And it so affected our dating relationship and our marriage, just having the gift to share with just each other and knowing that there's no
one else in it.
Yeah, exactly. So we're thankful for that.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lord. So now when you go and share your story, you don't just share on purity, although that's a big part of what you do. But what are the other things that you speak to the youth about?
Yeah, a lot of it is about the purity message, and Molly will get opportunities to share her Keep Your Pants On message, which is really a kind of a why to wait and all the dozens of reasons why that makes sense. Whether you bring God into the picture or not, it still makes sense.
It's still a good idea.
And then oftentimes we'll get to invite students back for an evening session where Molly and I will speak together and then be able to share our story, and that's more of the how to wait. Like we tell students it's important to wait, but then what practical tips can we give them in order to do that? And so we really
want them to
were
be successful.
Right, and we were protecting our future in our marriage way before we ever met. You know, back in middle school, back in high school, making boundaries, setting standards, and so that we weren't going to have regrets coming into marriage. But so that is what we speak on most often. But we've got a couple fall retreats coming up where we'll be speaking throughout the course of the weekend, and purity may or may not come up. We have a passion more than anything else to tell people about Jesus. Like we love our story, we love being able to share that, but we love Jesus even more than our story. And so whatever avenue that takes, whether that's with youth or with families, we love when those doors open up, but we really have a heart for teenagers, I think, more than anything. We get teenagers. It wasn't all that long ago. Well, for me it was a while, but for her it wasn't that long ago. So we remember what it was like, and those can be difficult seasons. So if we can help them through that season, then that's what we want to do.
Thank you for championing, cheering on our young people. They need that. They need those mentors and encouragers and people who speak truth into their life with all these messages bombarding them constantly. That is against God and against purity and against all the good things God wants for them. So do you have a good testimony? Do you have like someone's life that's really been touched and changed?
I sure hope so.
I'm sure you do, but
picking
like which one
is...
comes to your mind and your heart?
Well,
I guess out?
One, we just actually spoke last night too, so this is fresh on my mind. Last night we spoke to parents and teens together, so that's become now now that we're actually parents and we have our own family unit, we're starting to get asked to speak to parents and teens, and we actually did a family camp a few weeks ago, which was super fun. So last night, after this message to parents and teens, Mom came up to me and just wanted to say hi, and reminded me I spoke for a mother-daughter retreat 5 years ago, and that I had shared just an idea for maybe some teens who have a hard time communicating with their parents. They could use a journal and just write a letter to their parent and then hide it in a secret special place that only the parent knows, and they exchange back and forth. And so this mom told me that she and her daughter started that 5 years ago, right before her other daughter went through brain cancer, and it was like an incredibly difficult season. And she, with tears in her eyes, just said that kept our family together, and that God used that in such a powerful way. And so it's super fun to hear stories like, anywhere from 1 to 10 years later about how God used just even a small portion of what we shared that we maybe don't even think a big deal. What comes to your mind, honey?
Yeah, there's things that you don't necessarily think are going to be impactful for the right person at the right time when it's exactly what they need to hear. That's all they need to hear. Molly tells me stories when she goes into public schools, and one not too long ago where a girl came up to her with tears in her eyes saying, "Thanks for telling me I don't have to have sex."
Right.
We're like, wait a minute.
Does anybody tell our
did
teens?
you really think that you had, like, it was non-negotiable? And like, she's just, the burden is lifted, tears are flowing, and she's like, thank you for telling me I don't have to.
Yes.
And that's just heartbreaking to think that the message that's being sent to so many is that this is the way it is, and this is what it is expected. And so what is really nice about our story is that we can say, listen, it can be done. It can be done. So many people just say, what you have is unattainable. I had a girl in my youth group sit down and say to me, Pastor Craig, what you and Molly have is unattainable, so I've decided, why try? And I say, just stop right there. That's a lie from the enemy, and you need to claim it for what it is, because it is possible. It's not because I'm a superhero or Molly has superpowers. It's because we have Christ in us, and the same Spirit that's in us is in you, and you claim that and you live into that.
He's the superhero, and he lives in our heart.
Right. We're human beings, and so yes, we made good choices along the way, but God was there to rescue us at other times too, and pull us out of harm's way.
We've gone through our fair share of, not good choices, and so
everybody faces temptation. Even Jesus did. And actually, like Joseph, you ran.
Yes,
didn't you?
Literally.
I did.
Literally,
yes.
you ran.
Yes.
What happened there? Just
it's a great story.
No, it goes back to middle school. It goes back to 7th grade. I found myself at a birthday party, alone in a room with a girl, and so many times we as men get the bad rap for being the pursuers and the aggressors. And for the majority of my life, I was not. I was the one being pursued, and I was the one fleeing. And so in this situation, I remembered somewhere in the Bible it said, flee sexual immorality. I couldn't tell you where it was, but I knew it was in there, so I ran. I just said, excuse me, pardon me, coming through, and I took off and I ran, and this gal, she ran after me. I ran down the stairs, through the living room, out the backyard. She's still running after me, and I went and I stood in the middle of a garden on top of a sprinkler, and she didn't want to get wet. And that's how I saved my virginity from my wife decades later.
And running.
Exactly.
So God always, Scripture tells us, 1 Corinthians 10:13, that He always provides a way out. There's always a escape door. There's always a hatch. It's not always convenient, but it's always there.
Yes.
And so for me, it was, out the door, down the stairs, through the yard, and I thank God for that. And the foundation that was laid. Early on in my family to recognize what was happening, and I knew what I wanted to be. I knew who I was living for, and so when I found myself in that situation, I knew what to do. So many students today find themselves compromising because they've never taken the time to say, what am I going to do when this happens, when there's an opportunity? So they end up compromising. So that's part of what we talk about is have those conversations. What will you do when you find yourself alone in a bedroom with someone else? Who will you date? What are your standards? What are your boundaries? So many people don't, they get into trouble because they don't know what their boundaries are. Or they do know their boundaries and they don't communicate them with the person they're in a relationship with.
They feel this pressure, And I'm like that gal, I wish somebody would have told me, you don't have to live like that. So you had to set these for sure boundaries. You can't just be wishy-washy.
Exactly.
And even where's the line? People have asked us before, well, where's your line, that you drew? And so some people kiss, some people don't kiss, some people don't touch, some people hold hands only or whatever. How do you communicate that? Help them?
Well, it's a good question because actually coming into the relationship, we did have different boundaries. And so why don't you tell you how that kind of played out?
When I was 13, I went to a True Love Waits conference, and I was like, yes, I'm signing this card. Not that you have to sign a card, but I was like, I'm going to wait for sex. But then as I got older, I realized I needed to find more what is sex and what is included in purity. So
because what we've started to say is that we believe God cares more about your purity than He does your virginity. So many times we say, okay, virginity is the line, but I'll do anything and everything except for intercourse, and we're like, well, time out.
Wait a minute. Is that pure?
Rather than ask, how much can I get away with, maybe we should be saying, how pure can I be? How sanctified can I live? And so we try to communicate that God really cares about your purity,
which is bigger,
equally
even bigger than
your
just
virginity, right?
Not just in the physical,
part.
but your heart and what you see and what you hear and who you hang out with, all of that.
So you were sorting that out as a teen?
So I was sorting that out. I was always excited for my first kiss. Oh, I couldn't wait. I mean, I knew I wouldn't do the sexual stuff. I always said, I'm not going to let a guy touch me where the sun doesn't shine until we're married.
Right.
But I went to a camp when I was 17, and I heard this sweet testimony of this woman who, she and her husband actually had gone way farther than they would have liked before meeting each other, and then came to God, heavy hearts, asked for forgiveness, and he did, and he redeemed them, and they had set this commitment before they ever met to save their next first kiss for their future spouse. So then they met, fell in love, and it was just this beautiful story, and God just was doing something on my heart, and I was like, really, Lord, are you calling me to do that? Because that's crazy. Well, he did.
No kiss
when
till
I was
you're married.
17, I made a commitment that I was going to save my first kiss for my wedding day for my husband. And I'll tell you what, it wasn't always easy, but it got rid of some guys that were only interested in one thing. And I knew it would be hard, but I knew God called me to it. I didn't know at that time that God was calling me to speak on purity and abstinence really all over the place. And so I think he knew that, obviously.
Right.
So then when I met Craig, I just thought it would come up naturally, and well, it kind of came up. Can you tell him your perspective?
Well, we were dating. The same night where I had met her parents, and I was taking her back to her apartment, and I wanted her to know I was serious about pursuing the relationship. I mean, I didn't take kissing lightly. So in my mind, when we got to her apartment door, I was just going to simply ask her if I could give her a kiss goodnight, and to let her know I'm not messing around. I'm excited about where God is taking our relationship. And so when I asked for that, could I have a kiss goodnight?
No, but clarify. You said, "Can I give you a kiss?" Which I think is a huge difference, because he wasn't about taking; he wanted to give.
Yep. So she said, "No, get away from me. You're disgusting," and sent me on my way because I didn't know that boundary or commitment.
Yeah,
so
which I should have communicated earlier.
But look, at least he asked.
He did, and it was so beautiful how he did it, because he asked and he said, "I want to give you this kiss." I think so often people are trying to take from the other, and that's not love. So, skipping some details, the next day I got together with him to explain my heart. I didn't tell him that night. It was really late. And so the next day we actually met at a park, and he had brought me, I shared him the whole story, how I was going to wait till I was married. I didn't know what he would think. And he pulled out of his backpack a little sparkly gift bag with a note that says MJ, his nickname for me. It says MJ until that day, and it was full of chocolate kisses. And he handed it to me, and he said, "Your commitment is now my commitment." And so,
Thank you, Lord.
I knew without a doubt this was the Lord, the man God had for me. And having that boundary helped us so much. We just had so much fun dating, and
cuts off the confusion.
Exactly.
There's so much confusion out there.
And we found such freedom.
Freedom.
Like, we
That's
think the
right.
boundaries are there to restrict us, but we found such freedom in that. And so we're not telling other people, hey, you shouldn't kiss until your wedding day. But that's what worked for us, and
Ask
we found
God, though.
freedom
Exactly.
in it.
Ask
Ask
God.
That's what we
God,
say.
what should your boundaries be?
Right, because you know what I've heard, even in the doctor's office, like, well, unless you want to.
Oh.
A little child doesn't have that ability yet to know what they really want in that area.
Right.
So even that whole philosophy, unless you feel like it or want to, we need to protect them, and we need to help them to set those boundaries, make it clear.
Yep.
Well, if we could just take a minute to pray, I would love to pray for you guys.
Sure.
Thank you, Father, so much for the ministry that you've given Craig and Molly, for the beautiful love story and purity and marriage and children now, and just a generation being raised up to know that they don't have to follow the world's way. And I just praise you, Lord. I pray that message will go out to the nations, not just our nation. We need it. But Lord, the whole world needs to know that you have the best way in mind. And so we just love them. We bless them. We thank you for this day, and help them to rise and shine for your glory. Amen.
Amen.
You've been listening to Rise and Shine with Jolene Merrick. We'd love to hear how this program has impacted you. Visit our website at sunriseproductions.com. That's SONRISE Productions.com under the tab Rise and Shine Radio Show. or mail us at P.O. Box 624, Prior Lake, Minnesota 55372. You can also order a CD or MP3 file of today's show by visiting the Store tab on the website. Thank you for listening, and have a blessed week.